Hello and welcome to Movie Recap Cinema. Today we will be delving into the gripping and intense 2022 movie, Death Hunt. Please be advised, this recap will contain major spoilers. The movie begins with an aerial shot of a serene landscape. The camera pans down to a dense forest where young TJ practices shooting under his father's guidance. His father instructs him on proper technique and directs him to aim at a human target tied to a tree. TJ shoots but doesn't kill the target. Proud, his father rewards him with a necklace and leaves to end the target's misery himself, shooting the man multiple times until he is dead. The scene transitions to a rustic town in Crawford County where Ray Harper, a commercial land developer, meets with the town's deputy mayor, Reverend Glenn Eagle, in a church. Ray discusses his plans to develop a commercial property in the town. The gruff and corrupt deputy mayor listens intently but is more interested in the bribe Ray offers. Ray hands over a Bible stuffed with cash to facilitate the process. The deputy mayor arranges a meeting between Ray and the townsfolk, where Ray explains the project's potential economic benefits. However, the townspeople reject the idea and storm out of the meeting. Ray returns to his sleek car where he meets his girlfriend, Brooke Hamilton. Brooke reads about a getaway trip from a magazine and asks how his meeting went. She also chides him for delaying their trip and hands him a gift, a compass. Ray is impressed by the gift, and they head off for their trip, enjoying each other's company as they drive through picturesque landscapes. They stop at a gas station, and Ray, distracted by a phone call, asks Brooke to refill the tank. She does so, and they leave, unaware Rick and TJ are tailing them in a pickup truck. As Ray drives, Brooke notes that he has deviated from the highway. Ray assures her that he is taking a shorter and faster road. TJ's truck speeds past them, almost running them off the road. Their idyllic escape takes a dark turn when they are stopped by Gary, the town's sheriff. The sheriff's demeanor is menacing, and Ray and Brooke quickly realize something is wrong. Despite Ray's protests, the sheriff forces them out of their car and searches it, finding Ray's gun. Ray explains that the gun is legal and for protection. TJ's truck arrives, and the sheriff ignores Ray's attempts to raise an alarm about their speeding. The sheriff appears to be in cahoots with TJ and Rick, handing them Ray's gun and driver's license. TJ orders Rick to take Ray's car, and the sheriff loads Ray and Brooke into his patrol car. At a secluded harbor, TJ gives the boat driver bags to load onto the boat before Rick and the sheriff arrive with the hostages. Rick parks Ray's car and searches their belongings. Now handcuffed, the sheriff forces them out of the patrol car at gunpoint and commands them to get on the boat. Ray and Brooke are taken offshore to a remote location, their fear and confusion growing with each passing moment. They arrive at a remote island with a wooden cabin. TJ pays the boat driver and gives him instructions on how to deal with the cars they left behind. Ray initially believes they are being kidnapped and robbed, offering TJ his watch, car, and money. But TJ declines. They are taken into the cabin and uncuffed. Rick explains the ground rules for survival to Brooke, but she uses the opportunity to grab his knife and stab Gary's hand. She attempts to escape but is stopped by TJ, who points a gun at her. Rick takes the couple to an abandoned room, asks Ray to handcuff himself and Brooke, and leaves for the night. Brooke expresses her fear, and Ray comforts her. As they play cards, the trio's twisted tradition of kidnapping strangers and hunting them for sport on the island is revealed. Rick comes to the abandoned room and takes Brooke despite Ray's protests. He forces her to sit, but she insists she wants to leave. Since it is night and rainy, with no transport off the island, TJ mocks her and opens the door for her to leave. Ray grabs a torch and spots a box of explosives. TJ begins playing his guitar, and Gary forces Brooke to dance with him. The next day, the trio loads their weapons in preparation for the hunt. They bring out the couple, and Rick takes a photo of them. TJ explains their gruesome practice of human hunting for adrenaline rushes to Ray and Brooke. He also describes the island's terrain and tells them no one leaves until the next day when the boat driver arrives. Rick shoots at the couple, giving them a brief head start before the hunt begins. The tension is palpable as the couple frantically flees, strategizing on how to survive. The hunters take a water break, and Rick snaps a photo of Gary and TJ. Brooke trips and falls as they flee, and Ray encourages her to keep going. Her fall alerts the hunters, who resume their search. TJ, Rick, and Gary devise a plan to split up for the hunt, agreeing to alarm one another by firing a bullet into the air. Ray, accustomed only to corporate battles, struggles in the wilderness. He reaches for a large branch and advises Brooke to run and hide. Brooke's survival instincts kick in, and she flees to hide. Ray attacks Gary with the branch and grabs his firearm, narrowly escaping Rick's shooting, but Gary fires at him, hitting him in the arm. Ray's condition deteriorates from the injury. Brooke re-emerges to nurse his wounds and comfort him. The hunters approach, and it becomes clear that Ray is becoming a liability. He advises Brooke to run, and she flees. Despite his physical weakness, Ray's determination to face the hunters and exchange gunfire proves useful to Brooke's struggle for survival. Rick shoots Ray through the chest, showcasing Ray's transformation from a self-serving businessman to a man willing to give his life for another. Rick rushes to Ray and asks Gary to take a photo of him. They discover Ray isn't fully dead yet, and TJ offers to put him out of his misery. The scene is gritty and visceral, highlighting the brutal reality of their situation. Brooke returns to Ray's lifeless body and weeps bitterly. She retrieves the compass from his pocket and takes the gun he had taken from Gary. Gary spots her and shoots, grazing her arm and causing her to bleed. She seeks refuge in an isolated spot in the forest, where she discovers a pendant and several human skeletons. Navigating the forest, Brooke finds her way back to the cabin. She bandages her wound and gathers supplies. She calls for help through the transceiver, which is intercepted by Rick, who alerts TJ and Gary. The trio returns to the cabin to find Brooke gone. They search the forest and speculate about the possibility of Brooke swimming off the island, though TJ notes the slim chances of her escape. Discovering a blood trail, they begin to follow her. In an attempt to call for help, Brooke fires the flare gun, which alerts TJ, Rick, and Gary. Gary notices the pendant necklace she set as a trap and approaches it. He spots Brooke camouflaged in the greenery, aiming at him. He narrowly escapes as she shoots Rick in the foot, incapacitating him. Brooke fires at TJ and Gary with ferocity and cunning, forcing them to retreat. After a heated exchange, they cease fire, and Brooke runs to hide. TJ and Gary carry Rick back to the cabin, realizing they are out of supplies to treat his bullet wound. TJ offers Rick whiskey to numb his pain and attempts to encourage him. Brooke calls for help on the transceiver, unaware that she is alerting her hunters. TJ gives Rick a gun and instructs him to kill anyone who enters the door. He then returns to the forest with Gary to search for Brooke. Gary spots her and begins to follow her. Brooke shoots Gary in the leg, alarming TJ. Before she can execute him, she runs out of bullets. Gary, intending to kill her, changes his mind and reaches for his knife. Despite his brutal strength, Brooke manages to push him off and shoots him multiple times. TJ arrives to find Gary dead and returns to the cabin to inform Rick of his demise. He lies to Rick, promising to get him off the island, but ends up shooting and killing him. TJ opens a box labeled Plan B and arms himself with explosives. He returns to the forest and begins indiscriminately firing the explosives, forcing Brooke out of hiding. A chase ensues, culminating in a ruthless and relentless exchange of fire. Brooke grazes TJ's ear with a bullet, and he responds with an explosive. In a gripping, high-stakes battle of wits and endurance, Brooke outmaneuvers TJ and seeks cover in a murky swamp. TJ throws bombs into the swamp and then leaves. Returning to the cabin, TJ reaches for another box of explosives. He recalls a memory of his father training him to shoot, remembering his neutral reaction to the bullets fired at a human target. He notices petrol on the floor and Brooke hidden in a corner, armed. Brooke confronts TJ, the final hunter, and ultimately shoots him, defeating him. She sets fire to the box of explosives and rushes out of the cabin. As dawn breaks, Brooke sits alone by the fire, surveying the aftermath of the night's events. She is physically and emotionally exhausted, but triumphant. The island, once a prison, now symbolizes her resilience and survival. She buries Ray and notices the boat driver arriving at the shore. She fires several bullets at him, killing